Okay, let's continue our expansion of the functionality of our Gizmo. I'm going to hit X to bring up the TCL script dialog, and we'll do despill, unspill color, which is the name of our Gizmo, to drop down a fresh version of it. And we will connect it to this just to preview it. There we go. Let's explode this into a group or copy to group so that we can edit it again. And the functionality that we want now, I'm holding down Control and Enter to jump in, to dive into it. We've got it set up so that it can do unspill and despill and unspill both. But let's do an unspill plus, I'll call it, which is using the background image to drive the unspill. So we're going to need another input. So I'm just going to duplicate this input like this, copy and paste it, and we'll rename this input to be background. And we'll call this one, we'll make this a little bit more clear what it is. We'll call it screen image. So in order for what I like to call a driven unspill or Uber unspill or unspill plus, whatever you want to call it, it's a variation of the unspill concept where you're taking the image and creating a spill map and then unspilling the background. But rather than doing it by simply driving the values of the background to neutralize the green color, what you do is you use the background that you're going to put the image over to do the unspill on the background. So let's reset all those edits. And we need to connect the background to this so that we can start working on it inside of our group here. So I'm going to go back to the node graph, and you'll see now my group has a new input, which is the background. I'm going to connect that to that so we can work on our background and see what we're doing in this group 1 node graph. I have the control here. So really all we're doing with this is we're taking the despilled background and we're adding the background to it. So we can use a merge plus and add the background to the despilled screen image. And we need to do that by the spill map. In this case, the spill map is on the green channel. There we go. So now we're adding the background into the areas where the spill map is the most dense. Now, if we really wanted to take this to its logical extreme, we could also pull the screen down at the same time that we're brightening it up. So we're going to have to add that functionality in here in a way that we can control it in our Gizmo. And I think because we know the color of the background here, or we can figure this color out, we could mathematically set this up so that it can automatically figure out that offset on its own. So let's create some additional user controls, user knobs, that the user can use to tell this Gizmo what this color is of this unspilled screen. Because it would be possible, technically possible, to probe it automatically, but it might not be the best idea to try to automatically figure it out. It'd probably be best to give the user some control over that. So let's make another user control. I'm going to clear this all out so I make sure that I'm editing the right group here. Manage user knobs. And we will create a new RGB color knob. We got to figure out where we want to put this in the UI also, but let's give it a name first. We'll call it despilled screen color. It's verbose, but it'll be descriptive. And we'll call this actual user control, the label. We'll give the label a similar name. And let's make sure we give this one a tooltip because this could be confusing. So we'll say the color of the screen after it has been despilled. And we'll even tell the user what to do. Pick the color of the screen after it has been despilled. Now we got to figure out a good place to put this in the UI. I think it would the best place to put this would be after we've done all the despills, but before we do anything else. So we'll put this down. We'll move it down until it's above that one, and we'll put another divider line below it. We're also going to want to know the black point of the background that we're putting behind. So let's create a user control for that. And it will also be an RGB color knob. And we'll call this one background black point. And we'll give it a label that's similar. And again, I think a tooltip is in order for something this confusing. Okay. So now let's go and we'll start building some logic inside our Gizmo to pick up these values here. And oh, while we're here, we need to change our pull down menu because we know we're going to have an additional option here. So for this pull down menu, edit that, and we'll add an additional option, which will be unspill plus, or let's call it driven unspill. Alrighty. So now we have an additional option. And we'll dive into our group again. And let's start wiring up the logic for this. So what we want to do on our incoming image here, before we add it to this, we want to offset it to pull down the blacks of this incoming despilled image. So we need to move the blacks of this incoming image blacker than black. We need to make them negative values. So I'm going to add in a grade. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a small expression in the offset here that will allow us to automatically, based on the colors we've picked in our user controls here, the despilled screen color and the background black point, have this grade node automatically calculate how much to offset the image. So to do that, I'm going to click on the offset and I'm going to hit the equal on the keyboard to bring up the edit expression dialog. And what we need to do is figure out the offset, the difference between the black point and the despilled color. So what we want to do is subtract the despilled screen color from the background black point. So if you remember the names of those variables that we created in the Gizmo or in the group node, they were parent, which is the group node, parent, and then background black point minus the despilled parent despilled screen color. And you'll notice that it will sometimes warn us if we've made a mistake and it can't return anything. If it returns a result, that means that it is evaluating properly, which is great. You can kind of debug as you go. So let's pick some colors now that we've connected it to our Gizmo here. Let's pick some colors and see if it works. So my background black point, which I'll just pick the blackest point in my incoming image here for that. And let's view it here before the grade to make sure that I'm not accidentally picking that. And then we'll view our despilled background, and for the despilled screen color we'll pick that here. Now let's see if this grade is, there we go, that's what we would expect it to do. It should be offsetting the black lower than black. Now one thing to be careful of, there could be a little mistake in logic here if we allow it to clamp black. We actually want to let this push it into negative values so that when we add those negative values in, they actually push that background down more. Now the background still has a lot of red in it, so we may have to expose to the user the ability to grade this background a bit more. Even though it's offsetting the black down, let's allow this to be multiple channels. There we go. Now that this can have multiple channels, it's pulling down all of the channels. So we'll make sure that that's working as well. Everything that we set up inside this group, when we save it to a Gizmo, that will be the default state of the Gizmo. So it all has to work before we save it out. Okay, so let's give the user a little bit more control over the background here so that they can grade this. Let's expose another control in our Gizmo. So we'll right click, manage user knobs, and we will, instead of adding our own control and linking it, we will pick again from that grade node. And we just want the gain. Use the gain or the multiply. Let's use gain. And we will put this one, we'll group it with the despill controls. So we'll move it up a little bit. And let's give it a better name. We'll edit it. So rather than just gain, we'll say driven unspill gain, which is pretty descriptive. And we'll give it a good tooltip. Gain for the background. On the driven unspill. Done. So now we have, we still don't have it wired in, so let's make sure we wire this into our switch, which is already connected to our user control here, our user knob. So we should be able to, if we view at the group here, we should be able to do despill, or driven unspill or unspill, which has nothing set up in its unspill offset. And that's ready to go. Okay, so let's save this out, and then this version is done. So we'll go to Node, Export as Gizmo, and save this as our despill unspill color. Yes.